The Middle East can survive without oil for weeks, but without fresh water, many cities would be counting their final days. In the confrontation between the United States, Israel, and Iran, the most dangerous target may not be the oil fields, but the water supply. That is why this conflict now threatens not only energy markets, but the survival of millions of people. A human being can endure without food for a long time, but after only 2 to 3 days without water, the body begins to fail. In the Middle East, where the climate is harsh and fresh water is already scarce, that makes water the ultimate strategic resource. Yet in most war analysis, all attention remains fixed on the Strait of Hormuz, on oil tankers, and on fuel depots burning under missile strikes. That is only half the picture, because behind the oil infrastructure lies an entire survival system now exposed to attack. The wealthy Gulf states do not live off great rivers or natural lakes, but on hundreds of desalination plants built along the coast. In many of these countries, most drinking water comes directly from those facilities, meaning one successful strike could trigger an immediate crisis. The same technology that turned desert into modern cities has also revealed a fatal weakness, because these plants are fixed, exposed, and difficult to replace quickly. One missile, one drone, even one well-executed cyber attack could cut off water to millions without capturing a single piece of land. When the power grid collapses, water stops flowing, and that is when war moves beyond the battlefield into kitchens, hospitals, and residential neighborhoods. Recent warnings suggest that the focus of military action is shifting from purely military targets to essential civilian infrastructure. If the cycle of retaliation continues to escalate, thirst could become the quietest and most ruthless weapon in this war. And to understand why fresh water is becoming the new pressure point of the Middle East, we need to look at the fragile system keeping the desert alive. Across the Gulf, desalination is not a backup system. It is the foundation of daily life, public health, and political stability. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait rely heavily on coastal desalination plants to keep homes, hospitals, and industries running. That dependence has created a dangerous paradox. The richer and more modern these desert states became, the more vulnerable they became to water disruption. These massive facilities sit in predictable locations near the shoreline, making them visible, fixed, and extremely difficult to defend completely. A strike does not need to destroy an entire plant to cause chaos. Damaging power links, intake systems, pipelines, or digital controls may be enough. This is exactly why water infrastructure is so tempting in asymmetric warfare, where direct military parity is impossible, but economic and social shock can still be achieved. Iran understands that it cannot easily outmatch the United States and Israel in open air and naval combat, so it looks for pressure points that produce wider consequences. Knocking out electricity and water in a Gulf state would not just create inconvenience. It could trigger panic, unrest, and rapid loss of public confidence. In the most extreme scenarios, a major city could face emergency evacuation within days if its main desalination supply were disabled. Smaller Gulf monarchies are even more exposed because they have fewer redundancies, less strategic depth, and limited alternative freshwater reserves. But Iran is not standing on secure ground either. It is now deep into a prolonged drought that has already pushed reservoirs and urban water systems toward crisis. Around Tehran and other major regions, falling water levels have turned water stress from an environmental problem into a national security problem. Unlike its wealthier Gulf neighbors, Iran cannot easily solve the issue by rapidly expanding modern desalination capacity under sanctions and wartime pressure. That means both sides are confronting the same brutal truth. In this conflict, water is no longer background infrastructure. It is leverage. And once water becomes leverage, the war stops being only about deterrence, missiles, and oil. It becomes a direct contest over civilian survival. That is what makes the next phase of this war so dangerous, because it is no longer only about who can strike harder, but who can endure longer. President Trump has projected confidence, arguing that Iran's military structure has been badly degraded and that the campaign is moving faster than expected. But beneath that confidence lies a deeper contradiction. Airstrikes can damage capabilities, yet they do not automatically deliver a stable political endgame. The central problem is Iran's enriched uranium, because destroying launch sites is one thing, but fully controlling a nuclear program is something else entirely. Intelligence discussions have already pointed to the possibility that air power alone may not be enough to secure that objective. Once that reality sets in, every military planner faces the same nightmare. The road from limited strikes to deeper entanglement can become very short. A ground operation inside Iran would be vastly more dangerous, more expensive, and more politically damaging than a short aerial campaign. That is especially true if Iran's ruling structure remains intact, because the surviving leadership can still absorb punishment and continue the war on its own terms. Tehran has made clear that it sees this as a fight for regime survival, not a moment for surrender under bombardment. That hardline position matters because as long as the Iranian state remains coherent, outside pressure may strengthen resistance instead of breaking it. At the same time, every extra day of war raises oil prices, increases economic anxiety, and creates political risk for Washington at home. With elections always shaping American decision-making, a prolonged conflict can quickly turn from a show of strength into a domestic liability. So the real question is no longer whether this war can inflict damage. It clearly can. The question is whether it can force a conclusion. If Iran refuses to yield, and if the United States refuses to stop short of total nuclear dismantlement, the line between victory and quagmire may disappear. And in a region where both water and power are now under pressure, the final cost of that deadlock may be paid first by civilians, not soldiers.